Hello and welcome. My name is Tom Shima. Over the course of 2026, I'm playing the game Persona 3 Reload. Only I'm trying something a little different. I'm going to match the pace of the game. That's right, I'm playing this game one real day at a time. Please enjoy this different take on the game in a series I'm calling Persona a Day. Hello and welcome. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's awesome to see everybody ready to go. My name is Tom Shima. Come on in, let's have some fun today. Get something to drink, grab your favorite snack, and let's just settle in and have another nice, enjoyable time today. So, as I've been doing, and as I'm going to keep doing, I am playing the game Persona 3 Reload in a series I've called Persona a Day, where we play the game one real day at a time. It's been fun to see the game at this different pace. I've noticed new things, appreciated things differently, and I've always liked the game, but I've found even more reasons to like it going through it this way. As I like to do, I go over what we did yesterday in-game to catch everybody up and make sure we're coming into today with the same information. Then we'll move into the game and play through what happens today. After that, we'll come back to the desk here and talk a little bit about what we did and see if we can frame some new context on things. And then after that, we'll kind of wrap up the Persona side of things and go on with the stream in a different direction. So let's first look back before we get into today. Yesterday was Friday, May 1st. It was the start of a new month already, which it's still kind of wild to think. But as it was Friday, we started the day in school, and it felt like it was a fairly standard school day. The game didn't call out anything particularly of note during the day, so we were just left to assume that it was as standard a day as one can have. No highs, no lows, just a good productive day of learning. In the afternoon, Junpei stopped by. He sits near us anyway, but he'd mentioned that Akihiko asked him specifically for a favor. He wanted him to take a class roster for one of the other classes over to the hospital where Akihiko was being checked for his recovery. For anybody that doesn't remember, a couple weeks back, the dorm had been attacked by a shadow, and Akihiko took some damage in that fight, so he's been recovering since then. Also, apparently he's getting checked out at the hospital and wanted Junpei to bring him something. Yukari heard that as well, and she decided that, she and I want to tag along as well. Junpei, he didn't necessarily mind, but I could kind of tell that, he wanted to be the one to go because, he was asked to do this thing by Akihiko, and it was his task. And so for, Yukari and I to tag along, it just seemed like it was, making it less special for him. But in spite of all that, Yukari and I still did, go along with him. So the three of us headed to the hospital. And when we got there, we got to the room where Akihiko was supposed to be, and there was a young man we'd never met before sitting in a chair next to the bed there. We all kind of came in unsure of who this stranger was. Even Junpei and his happy-go-lucky positive self seemed a little taken aback by, just the bearing of this person. He had that gruff, stoic look. He didn't look intimidating or anything like that, but he also looked just like he knew what he was doing, and we didn't know how to approach him, really. We'll just leave it at that. And, he wasn't really, jumping out of his chair to introduce himself either. It was more of that just kind of looking up and what do you guys want? Almost like we were intruding on his space. Nothing confrontational, just that bit of friction you could feel instantly. And so, that in itself was kind of odd, but Akihiko came in and basically said, oh, he's a friend from school. Said it was complicated, but, the guy got up and said, I'm done here, basically. And, he started to leave before stopping and looking at our group and, seeming to, recognize, somebody or something about us. And he just kind of, called it out and said, you're... And then he said, no, never mind. And he just, continued on his way. A nice cryptic introduction to someone there who seems to know potentially something about someone in our group. So yes, he left. It's just Akihiko and the three of us in there now. And we kind of asked him, who was that? That's not someone we know. And Akihiko just said, oh yeah, he's a friend. It's complicated. We go to school together. And, left it at that. And I kind of rationalized at the time. It's like, yeah, that's fair. He's going to have people we don't know. We have people he doesn't know. Everybody's got their own groups and stuff like that. So, it was a different introduction, but we kind of got back on track. Junpei gave him the roster that he'd asked for, and he seemed to appreciate that. At the same time, we asked about how his recovery's going, and it sounds like it's going as well as it needs to, which was super encouraging. But Yukari brought up the question for him about why he chose boxing. We haven't really had a chance to get to see too much of Akihiko yet. We've seen him around the dorm a couple times, but we haven't talked to him a whole lot. And so, it was kind of nice to, ask him a bit about that background here. And he said that he chose boxing because he doesn't want to feel powerless, and he wants to work on being a better version of himself. All those cool, motivating lines about, being stronger than I was yesterday, that sort of stuff. It was, really encouraging to hear something like that. And it was the kind of thing that's fun to try to apply to other aspects of your life, too. And it really seems to fit what little we've seen about Akihiko so far. He seems like that really focused, driven, dedicated kind of guy, so that logic for his choice really seems to fit what we know about him so far. So after that task being taken care of, we all headed back to the dorm. Akihiko stayed behind to finish up some tests, but the three of us headed back to the dorm. And I talked with everyone again just to kind of, get the lay of the land. And they were also, talking again about the stranger we met and wondering, what the deal was there. And I think Yukari asked me if I thought it was strange or, what the deal was. And yeah, but I kind of leaned in. It's like, yeah, I'm curious. But at the same time, I do kind of want to respect that everybody has people they know that, they don't need to share with other people. So I think I made the comment yesterday, I haven't brought all my social links by the dorm to introduce them yet, but we're still, close in our own way. So everybody's got their own life, I guess, is kind of how it kept circling back. So, after checking in with everybody, we had the evening to ourselves again. Decided there was no need to go to Tartarus again tonight because we're still on pace with everybody, and we still can't climb any further because there's a barrier floor we've encountered. So I wanted to first head back out into the mall and check out Club Escapade. For those that are keeping track, we made it to the ordinary level of courage, so we were able to enter the club for the first time day before yesterday. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to go back there again yesterday and see, who's there, that night and, what's changed since we first got in. It looked pretty standard and everything, so we kind of just made our rounds and, looked around a bit, talked to the fortune teller again, and saw that everything was status quo. And it's just, nice to have one more place to consider spending our time as the availability arises. And after that, we decided that a couple days ago, after we reached that ordinary level of courage, I thought that I wanted to work more on our academic progress now. So I thought about ways we could, both do that, but also have some enjoyment in our life. I've said before, I don't want to just, min-max the playthrough and, repeatedly do the same thing because that's the best for the playthrough. A night prior, we had done a digital cram school on the shared computer back at the dorm to work on our academics. And I thought that, maybe we could stop by the net cafe and pick up another academic-focused bit of software, but at the same time, that felt a little repetitive to me, despite, it fitting the goal of working on academics, so it wouldn't have been the wrong way to play. But, as we checked out the net cafe, I remembered that, one floor down from there was a fish place that was selling a prodigy platter that was rich in omega-3s and, said to be, good for the academics. And so I figured, that was something different. We hadn't been in there yet before. We hadn't tried the food. At the same time, it was, Friday night. We'd been on the go all day from school to the hospital to, the evening walk. So I thought it would just be, kind of fun and fitting to stop and get a nice dinner. Seemed like it was a good fish meal that actually did, contribute to our academics. And it just kind of felt like that fitting thing to do to, get to the end of a busy day and just kind of sit back and relax. There was a good view. We were the second floor of the mall there, so we could kind of look out the window, have some good food, and then just, unwind for the day. It's, just nice to have those times sometimes. So after that satisfying meal and a bit of academic progress, it felt like kind of a win-win. And so with that, we headed back to the dorm, and that was where the day ended up. So now that we talked about all that, we're all sure of where we are and where we left off on May 1st, let's come into today, May 2nd, and see what happens. I'll get us over to the game, and we'll be right there. Okay, so as I do, this is where we left things off at the end of yesterday. So we just finished our fish meal. We gained that bit of academic progress, but not enough to put us into a new level yet. So we're a plain ordinary slacker at this point. But every day we're working, we're making progress. And so we've caught up to today. It is now May 2nd, Saturday, just like it is on the calendar. Coming into school, I can hear people talking. Golden Week starts tomorrow. Do you have any plans? Not really. But I'm not going to miss tomorrow's show. It's actually kind of fun somebody brought up a show again, because we've seen a lot of that this playthrough, about somebody needing to make it somewhere in time for their show, or changing plans with us because they've got to hurry back and catch their show. And for whatever reason, that kind of stood out to me as a recurring thing. But then I also have to kind of put myself back in that, proper calendar perspective. I mean, the calendar, and this is dated 2009. The can't remember exactly if the original version of the game was even set before then, but either way, I mean, this was in a time before, the extreme prevalence of streaming. You couldn't just, you pull up the show you want at any time. It wasn't one of those like, oh yeah, it's on, it's on now, and in 3 hours it'll be, available to stream whenever. It's like, you had to get home, you had to, watch the show. Shows had times, and, it feels so dated to think, but you had to when is it going to be on again so I can catch it? It wasn't like I could just pull it up whenever I wanted. I don't use it anymore, but I've still got a VCR for, I can think back in those times. It's like, okay, there's a show on, at this point in the day, and I'm not going to be there, so I have to plan ahead. I've got to, get this thing recorded if I want to see it, or I've got to plan my life around, getting home to see this. So it almost feels weird in today's, world of convenience of being able to pull things up whenever you want to watch them on demand. And it's nice and it's convenient, but it also kind of feels at times like we've lost some of that shared identity experience of everybody went and they watched this show at this time, and then they were able to talk about it. And now it's like, if a show is on and it's being watched, there's news articles out about it before the show's even done, and there's ways to see it, and just it's different now. So I'm trying to rationalize back to the world we're actually in the game. That nostalgic concept of, oh yeah, I do have to make it so I don't miss this show, because I would miss it if I haven't recorded it and I don't see it. So those ideas had crossed my head a couple other times when people had mentioned it, but I just kind of wanted to actually vocalize that now and share those thoughts and see how many of you remember doing stuff like that. Couldn't have just been me, right? Anyway, loud female student wants to make it home because she doesn't want to miss tomorrow's show.
Oh, totally.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Tanaka's Amazing Commodities, right? When I hear that jingle, I can't resist buying something. I never miss it when it's on Sunday afternoons. I'm about to go broke. There's a lot of nice red text there. It's not being super subtle about what maybe we should look at doing on Sunday. A shopping program that airs on Sunday afternoons. Since tomorrow's Sunday, maybe I'll turn on the TV in my room and watch it. Maybe I will. The girls we're eavesdropping on have done a good job selling the concept of it to me. And with that, the first bell has rung. And just like that, the last bell has rung. The class has ended for today. And as I've been saying, let's just try to think that this was a full a full day at school. It wasn't just this, 2 seconds of, class started, class ended sort of thing. There was learning that was done. We don't know what class is, but it was still a day. So it wasn't it might be quicker for us, since we're already at the after school time, but this is still a full day for our character and everybody in the world around him. So just to kind of keep that 1-to-1 day perspective going, it seems quick, but it was still a full day. Class is ended for today. Let's get a new save planted. And the usual routine. Let's check our mail. Lots of stuff today. We've got Yuko Nishiwaki. Hello. You done for the day? Want to head home together? We've got Bunkichi from Bookworms. I also kind of like that. The title here is cut off. Bookworms is open at the... I'm not sure where he was going with that, but it's a little too long for us to see here. You see, lately my wife has been saying that she wants to see Tom-chan. That's kind of nice, We'll have to consider headed over their way, maybe. Here's a message from Wakatsu. That was the place we had fish, dinner last night. Healthy brain food. Are you eating well? Keep a well-balanced diet. Keeping a well-balanced diet nourishes your brain, which can, in turn, improve your studies. We prepare great food with all our hearts just for you. Remember, a healthy brain stems from healthy food. Wakatsu's got your back. And yes, it is Saturday, so there's a sale at the pharmacy. Today is our weekly sale. Are you running low on medicine or other goods? Come visit us and stock up. I do think we want to, take another look at where we are on things. It's been a while since we've had to shop for anything. Well, there's been a lot we could buy, but as far as a medicine standpoint, we haven't really taken advantage of any of the sales there yet. And I do just want to stay, prepared for Tartarus. It's been a while since we've been in there, too, so I don't want to go underprepared next time we venture out. And if I can get something on sale, that's all the better. looks like nothing new to talk to anybody in the classroom about. Let's also check out the overall, the way most people spent their time, just to get that broader perspective. Most people with the social link side of things, with either Yuko or the old couple. But there were other options other people chose as well. And just like I always say, it's fun to see all the different choices that are all valid in their own way. It's not like, you could argue that a choice is better than another, but you could probably argue the same for that other choice. It'd be fun to spend time with Yuko, but I could also see studying in the library if you're focused more on academics right now. It's always about that choice, and that's kind of the fun thing about this series. And I guess on those regards, let's first start over at the Polonia Mall at the pharmacy there. The idea of spending some time with Yuko is kind of tempting, since it has been a little while since we've done anything with her. We've got a couple people down the hall here to talk to. We've got some students to over here gossiping, and here is Chihiro. We've been talking to her the last couple days. Some of you probably remember, since I've called it out a couple times now, that she is the treasurer for the student council. She's a first year, and she's a rather anxious person, which I've said before as well, that I'm able to kind of make that same connection to. She gets nervous pretty easy, it seems, and she's specifically said she gets especially nervous around men. I do want to kind of see if I can help her out there, while also understanding that anxiety, even if that it's not necessarily a rational thing. It's still just it is what it is. It'll bother you. I can relate 100% there. So I want to kind of try to reach that middle ground for her of including her without pressuring her to to force her to put up with me, I guess. But it's also one of those, I don't want to just totally say, oh, she doesn't want to talk to me, I'll leave her alone, because I want her to have that choice, basically. If she doesn't want to talk to me, she can totally say, I don't like this, go away. And I would respect that. But I don't want to make that choice for her and just say, oh, she's too nervous to talk to me, so let's ignore her. That doesn't seem fair to her. So we're going to keep talking to her as well.
Oh.
Hello. My first thought was hello. That's how I greet all of you every day, but I also see the nice casual oh hey. But I do kind of like to answer the same way she greeted us. She said hello, so we'll say it right back to her. That was the way she wanted to greet us, so maybe she's kind of like me in that regard too, where I kind of get that script going in my head of, if someone says this to me, this is my response. And I'm also going to say that's not the right way to probably socialize with someone. It's not good to see life as a dialogue tree, but it does kind of help my brain if I'm like, okay, if someone says hello, and then I'll say hello to them, and then they'll say this, and then I could say that. It all falls apart though when somebody goes way off script, and I don't have a prepared response when they say, good afternoon, young sir, or something. So don't get too caught up in the it has to be by the book, but also don't go too far off script and confuse people intentionally. So I'm going to say hello. That was a very wordy description of choosing one word to say, but I want to vocalize those things because hopefully that's part of why you're here. It's not just watching me, go through the game. It's kind of my responsibility to all of you to voice those thoughts in my head and try to make it interesting. So hopefully I'm doing okay with that. I was able to say hello to you. I love that feeling of accomplishment. I keep relating things back to this whole streaming series that started back, not even a month ago, back on April 6th. But those small victories, every one of them felt like, massive hurdles to overcome. That very first time I clicked start stream, or, the first time I transitioned to the game and didn't, click the wrong thing, or, those little things that just seem innocuous, those can be huge wins. So I love that intensity that she seems to have here. I did it. I was able to say hello to you. Although, the more I think about it, the more nervous I get. That's also good follow-up too, because even if something gets easier, that doesn't automatically mean it's not got pressure to it anymore. Before every one of these streams, I've got that 10-minute countdown clock. Every time I start that, I watch it tick down, and I'm like, okay, deep breath. What am I going to say? How do I say it? What's my name again? Okay, here's what I say. So it gets easier, but it never necessarily gets easy, if that makes any sense. She still gets nervous, despite succeeding sometimes. I hope I can get better at this somehow. Sorry, I just saw both options here, and my mind defaulted to good luck there, and that seemed almost the double-sided meaning there. It could be like, oh yeah, I'm wishing you luck, but it also could come across as that dismissive, oh yeah, good luck with that, as I turn and walk away. I mean, I'm sure the intent is to take it as like actually wishing her luck, but in my brain that potentially overanalyzes things. But she says she wants to get better at this, so it does kind of seem fitting to just give her that option to say, hey, let's hang out. You're able to talk to me this far, maybe it'll get even easier the more we practice. And even as she said she wants to get better, I was thinking the same thing, relating back to the streaming again. It's like the more I do this, the less I'll drop the ball, hopefully. So, practice helps. And if I can be part of that for her, that seems like that would be perfect for me. So let's hang out.
What?
That seems like maybe we went off script here, that, planned call and response idea. This is so sudden. I need to think about it. Okay. I still feel like that was progress with her. We've reached out and we've given her the option. Kind of that, and the ball's in her court now. If she wants to take us up on the offer, she's free to. If she doesn't want to take us up on that, that's also her choice. But again, it's letting her make that choice. We're not just making it for her because of what we assume we know. It's been really fun to see her after class here and just kind of see this slow connection forming. Because I can, take a lot of what she's dealing with personally and relate a lot of that. It's like, I don't want to feel overwhelmed and, dragged away to some social event right off the bat. I do want someone, to approach slowly and kind of get to know me and work on this in measured doses. Not to say that there aren't times for the alternative. I mean, everything's got a situation, but if I have the choice between forced to be social and gradually being social, I'm going to take the gradual side every single time. Just like having all of you here. I love having you here. It has actually been really nice to gradually build into this streaming forum and, this channel and, to see the regulars showing up. And I mean, that's not to say if, 100 of you decided to show up tomorrow, I would panic, but I panic when there's 2 of you here, so maybe it means I'm getting better. But anyway, this was Chihiro for the day. Nice to see we've, offered her an option that she's going to think about. Let's do our usual eavesdropping and listen to these informed students now. I heard Sanada-senpai was hospitalized. I hope he's okay. I wonder if he got hurt during boxing practice. I bet he got in a fight. Some real fisticuffs. I wish I could have seen it. I love watching martial arts. I like it. The informed students, the gossip-loving students, there's always those people that, see a situation and, and I say that before I say any further, I'm just as guilty of trying to interject meaning into things where I probably have no business commenting or thinking about, but, they don't know. It's like, was this a boxing club thing? Did he get in a fight? He's this mysterious guy, we don't really know. But again, it just kind of also makes that world feel like a world. Nobody does know what happened to Akihiko. Obviously, the thought of a shadow attacking a dorm, is probably not on anybody's list. So they try to rationalize it in other ways. It's like, well, he's with the boxing club. Maybe he hurt himself there. Or he boxes, so maybe he's a fighter. Maybe he got in a fight. And just trying to assign meaning to things. Haven't been by the school store in a while.
Welcome.
Hi there, welcome. Actually, I don't think we've really talked to the vendor in a while either.
Oh, yes.
She's also, heard stuff about Akihiko. I heard that the captain of the boxing team got injured. Some girls were gossiping about it. That's a rough way to start the new school year. That is a good thought, too. It's, as I can get out of everybody's way here, we did just start the school year back a month ago. Our first day of school for, our playthrough was back on April 7th. So it's still really early on in things. Akihiko's a 3rd year this year. And he's, with the boxing club, and he's got all sorts of other responsibilities, so I'm not sure how sidelined he's been. I mean, we've seen him at school, so he's not totally, been relegated from school, but, well, from a lot of the responsibilities and things he does, this might have, had a big impact on the start of his school year, so, that's something else to keep in mind as we look around. Lots of people have new stuff to say today. Do you see that girl over there? I think she's following me around. How should I deal with this? I'm guessing, based on game context, since the only other one I can talk to is the girl down there, that's who he's talking about. So let's check in with her and see what she has to say. Fawning student. first thing I do when I get to school is look for him. Just seeing him makes me smile. What should I do? How should I express my feelings for him? This is that, easy in a game situation of saying, oh yeah, just go talk to him. But in that real world sense, it's like, that sounds so easy to say in a game, but, all but impossible in real life. It's like, oh yeah, just, go up and talk to that person that, you've been thinking about and you're trying to come up with this ideal concept of. Like, oh yeah, that's perfectly easy. No pressure there. That won't be stressful. But it's also interesting to, see that presentation of the fact that they're both, I don't want to say suffering from this, but both, dealing with it in their own way because, she feels like she can't approach him and he wonders why she hasn't approached him basically and how he can deal with it. I guess there's also that fear that, if it feels off-putting to him, he might, tell her to stay away or knock it off, which would just totally collapse her entire image of him. But again, what seems easy to just say, oh, just go do this is not actually easy to in practice. So it is that dilemma. That's why there isn't actually an easy solution to this and why it is still ongoing for the two of them. And from a game standpoint, from a personal standpoint, it's like I kind of like that it doesn't, give me the option to step in and interject my own thoughts and, tell her what to do or go tell the guy about it. It's like that is between the two of them. They don't need my input on that. Neither of them ask for my input on that. I mean, the girl said, what do I do? But I think that was more of a rhetorical, asking anyone with ears as opposed to specifically asking me what she should do. So yeah, it was kind of fun to have that little bit of diversion here. I mean, I was trying to remember where were we going? And we were headed to the pharmacy to check up on the sale. And that's just, I'm going to keep saying it throughout the whole playthrough. The little things that I love about this series. It's like, I was trying to go something simple as walking to the mall, and I got sidetracked by talking to a couple other students. And just feeling again like this world, is developing around me. There were some of the, the usual faces, but they had new things to say. As people do over time. It's a new month. It's, the end of a week. It's the start of Golden Week. Or I guess my understanding was technically Golden Week started back on Showa Day, but that's my limited research understanding, so I don't claim any sort of expertise on that. We've got a cheerful old man here who we've seen a couple times at the mall. Those youngsters look like their souls have been taken. They better stop lounging around like that. They should go out, make some friends, enjoy life. It is true, we are seeing a few more people that aren't quite looking the best. And we've been hearing more and more about apathy syndrome and wondering how it's connected to the shadows and Tartarus and such. It's kind of rough since we haven't been able to climb any further in Tartarus that it doesn't feel like we can really do a whole lot at this point. Hopefully we come up with something soon. And I don't know that we talked to this apathy syndrome student before, but I've talked to everybody else, so let's do it. Okay, I can voice that. That one's easy. How'd I do? Did that sound right? Okay. The apathy syndrome voices are still, not my favorite to do to subject all of you to, but, that one was better than a lot of them I've had to encounter so far. While we're at the mall here, I always do like to make the rounds and see what games are going on, so rather than coming back this evening and checking that, let's start while we're here. We've got You're the Answer, a competitive quiz game to raise our academics. And that actually, depending on how our evening shapes up, that might be something to do today. It's, 3,000 yen, but it does focus on academics, and it's a game we've never played. And it's a Friday night, potentially, so if we've got some time this evening, we can keep that in mind. And Edgar's House of Fortunes to raise the magic of our equipped persona. Not an immediate concern for me. The pharmacy, though, that is where we were headed to look at the sale for the day.
Right.
Just for the record, using medicine alone doesn't guarantee good health. Eating a balanced diet and exercising regularly are more important than coming in here. I made that comment yesterday too. It seems like a really nice, encouraging, correct thing for the pharmacist here to be saying, and that medicine is there for a purpose, if a problem develops that requires it, but a lot of problems can be preempted with a little bit of right living and common sense. And for him to champion that ahead of his own products shows an actual caring about well-being rather than about selling us something to fix a problem that didn't need to become a problem in the first place, I guess. So, I appreciate that, and I feel like I can trust someone a bit more in that situation. Anyway, enough chit-chat. Let's take our time and browse.
We're having one big sale today. You can't find prices lower than here.
Nice, good sale today. I don't quite remember some of the original prices, but I do remember. Now I second guess myself, but I believe the cat food that we bought last week was on sale.
Used to going to school? What's wrong? Oh, don't tell me. You got the May blues, huh?
The May blues, that it's nice outside and I'm stuck in school kind of vibe. It's always hard, to interrupt them when they say stuff like that. But as I was saying, I believe the super cat food costs $700 regularly, so it's down to $490 right now. So it's a decent sale on some things here. Maybe I'm going to step out of the shop real quick and actually see what we have in our inventory, so I can have some better idea of what we actually might be in need of. I don't want to buy something that we have a lot of other equivalents of. We've got 12 life stones, which do a lot of that's 30% of the max HP. 50 HP, that's comparable to a life stone at this point, since our max HP is around that 150 to 170 range. We've got 3 medical powders, which that's a lot of HP at this point in the game. Beads are like they're gold. You hold on to those until you really need them. Cure water's a party-wide heal. We've got some SP restoration items. A good handful of revival options. We've also got this rancid gravy and weird takoyaki and an odd morsel that have weird side effect potentials as well. Got a couple gems that'll cure freeze, shock, poison, down, and dizzy, so a really good cure-all. The kind of thing you don't want to have to use necessarily, but it's that emergency item that's nice to have. And then some gems to do damage. Something to get out of combat. That Jack Frost doll we won at the Crane game. The cat food. And some Twilight fragments. So, as I look through all those, I should take one more quick peek here. We do have a not insignificant amount of recovery options. Let's see. Oh yeah, that one's fully healing. That's party-wide healing. And then we've got some, revival options. I don't think we need to worry about reviving. We've got 3 revival beads and 2 balms of life. And we do have skills as well for healing, like HP. We've got Dia for, Yukari, and I think I've got a couple options for that. So that's kind of like, converting SP into HP in a way. Let's take one more look at what he has for sale and move on with our day.
Come on in. There's a sale today. Buy whatever you need.
At the same time, I do want to balance out our yen as well. I don't want to, drop too much here today. I don't know what we're going to encounter as we go forward, so there's a part of me that's thinking about these.
Don't tell me. You got the May blues.
The May blues. These various status dispellers for charm, poison, and rage. We've got a couple of those gems that would cure any of those, but those kind of seem a bit more situationally valuable. If somebody's just charmed, I don't really want to use a rare healing item on them per se. I also don't want to break the bank and buy a ton of these.
You made up your mind?
I'm not going to buy a lot, but I think 2 of each, just, for that emergency situation, if a couple of us get charmed or if a couple of us get poisoned.
That's all you want? Thanks. Which ones? You sure? Thanks for coming.
Again, it's that tightrope act of spending what we have without spending things we're going to need later when new buying options come about. But I'd rather spend $700 per category here than to get into a fight and be poisoned, have that chip damage away that we could have healed by spending a few yen today.
Done already? Come again, yeah?
And it's also kind of rewarding to have them have a sale going on right now and be able to take proper advantage of that. It's like I got a deal. I got something I'm going to probably need in the future, and I got a good price on it. So I do feel good about that. And you probably already figured out based on where I'm headed that I'm looking to visit our Velvet Room residents here, as I've been doing. I want to see them more than just background characters, since they're just as much a part of our world as everyone else.
Welcome to the Velvet Room.
We don't have a lot to go over. The compendium's still up to date, and there's no new personas we need to make, but I just want to say hello to Igor and hello to Elizabeth. Continue to thank them for watching over us and keeping keeping their services open to me. And I just want to, stay mindful of what they do for me. So it's always nice to see them. I hope they're having a good Saturday.
We look forward to your next
And I'll be back another time to encounter you when I do. Go back through the hallway of doors here. Back to this side of things. Officer Kurosawa, let's check in on him while we're in the area. Yeah, he said this yesterday too. He's ashamed to admit, but there isn't much we adults can do for you when it really counts. He doesn't have much, but he'll sell us what he can.
What'll it be? What are you looking for?
And still nothing new, which I didn't expect, but that wasn't really the point of our visit either. It was just to kind of check in and once again say hi to Officer Kurosawa. For the same reason we talk to everybody else.
Be seeing you.
He's part of the team. I mean, he keeps us outfitted. I don't want to just dismiss him as a shopkeeper and only use him when I need him. So yeah, we did some good shopping after school today. Didn't actually come up with a game plan for what to do with our actual time here, so let's keep walking around. I'm sure everybody knows the next stop I plan to make. We've got another apathy syndrome person here. I'm going to keep talking to him like I've been doing. Okay. There's that soundbite for everybody to deal with. We're going to come back to the back streets here because this is the Weak Cat. We still haven't given it a name other than Weak Cat, but the fact that it hangs around with these tough guys, I want to think that maybe Weak Cat is just a misdirection, one of those ironic kind of names. Maybe it's actually this really strong cat that's this wise street cat that keeps everybody else in line. Still just says mew. But it's still hanging in there and it's still living its life back here. Always good to see. Almost feels like that cat's become almost a mascot to the playthrough at this point. And I like that. It's a character I haven't really done a lot of encountering with in the past. We've got a student over here. We'll just keep the fun going with Apathy Syndrome Man here. Yep, I'm sure I'm going to get a big voice acting deal off of some of these auditions. Here's the skilled reporter. We've seen her around before. Asking around is the basic technique for gathering information, no matter how creepy the story is. So how about it? Got any info on the mysterious incident? We've got some interesting choices here. I mean, I could just say nope. I'm not really sure I do have a lot to contribute to her story. There is nothing wrong with necessarily asking who she is. I mean, the game tells us she's a skilled reporter, but, for all I know, our character doesn't know that. And there are people who would probably ask this, but I can't imagine even considering something like that. This person I talk to you on the street, like, who are you again, old lady? Like, wow. That's the impression you want to make on this person? I mean, she also talks about, mysterious incident. I know, that she seems to be researching apathy syndrome, but, maybe there's that, fishing for more details to kind of confirm, what she's asking about so we don't, incorrectly give information we shouldn't be divulging. So, that feeling out question of, who are you again? Yeah, rather than straight up dismissing her, let's just, confirm. Yeah, see, who are you again? Can't you tell by looking at me? I'm a journalist. I'm trying to bust this incident wide open for the public. Well, I wish her luck on that. I don't have anything to add to her investigation. Nothing that would actually be concrete or relevant. Like, yes, the school turns into a mysterious tower at night, but only a few of us can see it, and you'll never see it, so I'm sure that would sell well. Another apathy syndrome student back here. Can't be too monotone, right? I mean, there's still a person in there, right? It's a vending machine while we're back here. And some minimal healing options, nothing we need. We've got the station attendant, the earnest station worker again. There are lots of weird people out there now. I heard it's the apathy syndrome victims. They keep walking in front of the trains and stopping them from moving. We won't laugh at that part. Yeah, I'd hate to see one of them jump in front of a moving train. Yes, that would be beyond words. No, don't want that. Enough of thinking about that, though. Let's carry on with our day. And there are a lot of people around. And we never actually did come up with a plan either, did we? All right, last stop before we come up with a plan. We'll go somewhere where it's quiet up to the shrine here. No one to talk about. Just hang out at the nice playground here in front of the jungle gym, and let's think. I'm still kind of drawn to the idea of spending some time with Yuko, since it's been a little while since we've done anything together. Let's check the old social links here. She is. We're still rank 1 with team manager there, and she is the strength arcana. On that note, let's double check. I've got Valkyrie, so we do have that, relationship bonus by having the corresponding persona with us. I think that seems like a good use of my time. I do want to try to get to know her a bit more and be there for her. It's been a while since we have done that. I think it fits the idea of keeping the day interesting and different. Let's make it back to school and find Yuko. We will start at the gates this time. To ride the train again. Let's head back in and go talk to Yuko. We don't usually take these stairs. Let's go this way. Actually, no, let's not go this way. Why would anybody think that? No. We're obviously going to take the proper stairs. Yes, so Yuko's down there. And yes, I do know I could technically just, select her, text here and travel that way, but it's kind of fun to just walk through the halls of our school and make it feel more like a building instead of just a setting. So, Yuko, let's hang out. Oh, Shima-kun. I've actually got to head out now and to do some shopping for the track team, like buying athletic tape and stuff. There's a lot, so it'd be nice if I had an extra hand or two to carry everything. Hint, hint. It's a good day for shopping. That's what we just got back from doing. And since I've got Valkyrie with me, I think we can get a little bit closer. Should we spend time with Yuko? Yeah, let's do it.
Thanks.
Oh, cool, thanks. I can't rely on the other team members at all. You get it, right, Shima-kun? I don't know, I haven't been to too many practices, but maybe they're too focused on training. She trusts us. I'm happy to be trusted. I won't look a gift horse in the mouth. Okay then, off to Paulownia Mall we go. Seems like we were just here.
Okay, shopping for club stuff is done.
I want to interject here too. I like the thought that, this event lined up with the day of the sale. We've got the sale banners going in the background there, but she needed to do shopping for the track team. And I like the thought of the planning that, she waited until the sale on Saturday to get the good deal on stuff that was needed. And, she's that responsible, efficient shopper. So, it's kind of cool to tie that idea in there and, add our own, version of meaning to things. I won't interrupt her from here unless I am drawn again. Okay, shopping for club stuff is done.
Good thing you came with me. Didn't realize there was so much to buy. Also, I wasn't really in the mental state to do this alone today.
Oh? My first thought, before seeing the choices was to kind of inquire into what happened, but, saying she did good, I assume that's probably true. And I'm also torn on the, not wanting to pry in a business that's not mine to pry into. But there's also the other side of me that feels like just saying, oh, you did good, might come across as dismissive if she actually does want to talk about it. She's not looking for my affirmation or help on anything, but if she is, it would kind of be nice to have some context maybe, so I guess if she doesn't want to talk about it, she'll tell me, but if I can know more about whatever she's going through, maybe there are ways that I could help her if it comes to that, so I think it would be more responsible to ask her what happened.
Oh, nothing major. Maybe I was exaggerating a bit.
Well, if you thought about bringing it up, it's got to be weighing on your mind in some capacity.
It's still bothering me, though.
Yeah. So, it's one of those, I'm happy to listen if you want to talk about it.
In today's classic literature pop quiz, I didn't know any of the answers.
I can relate to stuff like that.
And before I knew it, I dozed off. I ended up handing in a blank paper.
Ouch. That would be rough. That would weigh on my mind as well. One of the things I do like about this game is it does a really good job about having dialogue choices that I can both see and kind of argue with in my head at the same time. It's like, depending on how you take that's bad, that could be that's a bummer sort of thing, or that's too bad sort of thing. But there's also the other side about like, that's not going to help your grades. That's not going to do anything for your literature class, which isn't the meaning I would want to take. And saying it wasn't your fault, I mean, I can't really necessarily say that either. I mean, I know she didn't intend to do that, but I don't want it to come across either as me like overly, making, I don't know, it's not really an excuse, but it's like, oh, no, falling asleep in class wasn't your fault. It was something else. So yeah, I mean, I can see pros and cons to both answers, and that's what makes it hard to actually, decide on one then. It almost feels worse to say that's bad because, she knows it's bad. It's already bothering her. I mean, that's why she brought it up to us and said that it's on her mind. So I don't want to feed back into that and just make her feel worse about it. But I don't want to, give her that fake affirmation either of, oh, no, this wasn't your fault. This was not you at all. So I've got to pick one of them, though. I can't just keep going back and forth on that. But I feel like picking that's bad feels worse to me than saying it wasn't your fault. So I'm gonna go with my gut on this one and say it wasn't your fault.
I know, right? I didn't do it on purpose.
Exactly.
But then Mr. Akota got all pissed off.
And from a teacher standpoint, that's kind of the right answer for someone sleeping through a quiz. I mean, you're not going to expect him to say, oh, you look tired, don't worry about it. So that doesn't fly in the real world either. And I could kind of tell in her tone here that, the way she said that, but then Mr. Koda got all pissed off. It wasn't like she was mad at him about it. I could hear in her tone of voice that, she understands, why.
He called me to the faculty office and told me I had to write a reflection essay.
That feels like that, old-fashioned teacher punishment idea. Although I also do kind of want to not necessarily give credit to the teacher, but I do want to give credit to him because this does sound like the responsible way to handle it. It wasn't like he called her out in front of the class or made a big deal about this in front of everybody. He called to talk to her in private about this this valid concern about her sleeping through this quiz, and it resulted in extra work for her to have to do as a result, but. There were definitely worse ways that it could have been handled for all involved parties, so I do have to call out the good when I see it.
I had to listen to Mr. Akota lecture me for the longest time.
If I remember Mr. Akota, I think we saw him in a class earlier in the semester and around the school. He does kind of seem to be that very straight-laced teacher that, thinks students need to shape up a bit more and show proper respect and things. So this does kind of sound like the image I have of him. I think he was at the school store at one point too, and everybody was, crowded around. He was having issues with that.
He was all like, at this rate, you'll end up as a good-for-nothing adult, and you're not putting enough thought into your future.
She does a good impression. And that kind of feels like, the typical high school side of things you hear. It's like, what do the teachers know about my life? But the exact same thing on the other side about the teachers. Like, what do these students know about the real world? I need to prepare them for this. And if they think they can just, sleep through obligations, they're not going to make it in the real world. So both sides are kind of at odds. I think both sides understand the other's, perspective, but they still want to call it out.
Come on. It's way too early to worry about the future, isn't it? We're still just teenagers.
Yes and no. I don't think it's ever wrong to think about the future. I mean, there's only so much you can plan, and if you get too rigidly planned in something, that can be just as dangerous if something goes wrong, but the idea of going blindly without any sort of plan kind of scares me in its own way. I really do like to have some amount of structure. I mean, you can kind of build in, contingencies around it, but if I'm just going blind in something, I feel that much more anxious. I think when I initially started streaming, that was one of my biggest worries, and not knowing what to talk about, or if something goes out of my control, how do I address that? There's things I can't plan for that I'm just going to have to react to, and that's how life goes. I mean, you can't control everything, but there's that fine line of being conscious of the future and overplanning the future, just like there is having a plan versus totally leaving it up to fate and seeing where life takes you. So yeah, I mean, I can't really say that that's true, that it's too early to be worrying about the future. And there's a big part of me that says I don't think so, but either one of those feels like taking a side that I can kind of see both parts of, and I don't want to come across adversarially to Yuko, but I also don't want to just say what she wants me to say because that sounds like the right choice to keep her happy. I mean, if I don't actually believe that, it seems like a disservice to all of us for me to just say, oh yeah, that's true, you were totally right, the teacher was unfair. So I do kind of like this third option about kind of turning it back on her. It's like, have you thought about the future? I mean, I don't know what she's thought about the future. I mean, for all I know, she does have a game plan in place and she has thought about it. So for me to just straight up call her out and say, no, you need to think about your future, maybe she has done that. And I mean, and if she has, I don't still technically know that. So for me to just blindly say, yeah, you've got it all figured out, I don't know that either. So it seems like she could kind of see through that and have it come across as I'm just saying what she wants to hear, which if she picks up on that, I can't think she would be happy to hear that. So kind of the same deal talking to the reporter. I think we need more information. So let's just ask her, have you thought about that? What are your thoughts on the future?
Not particularly. Well, I guess I would like to graduate.
Okay, well that's something, I guess. It's not nothing. Kind of feels like the base level for the high school student of I want to pass high school.
Anything after that is pretty much undecided.
But I can also look back at my time in high school and think the exact same thing. It's like I obviously didn't have it all figured out. Anybody that did, I'm happy for you. I was not one of those people. I kind of felt like a lot of my progression through all that was kind of on rails. It's like, well, from high school, obviously once you're done with high school, you go to college. And well, while you're in college, you get a job to support yourself. And then after college, you progress through the careers. And, there's just that natural assumed structure to things. But even saying that, it's like, well, what kind of job? What do I do? I don't know. I didn't know that when I was her age, back in high school. So, I mean, there is that concept of trying to plan for something that you have no concept of, which does kind of feel impossible. So, she's not wrong to be undecided at this point.
I'm working hard for the track team, so I think that's good enough for now.
And, that's important, but ignoring the future for the present could have its own consequences as well. It's tough.
For the future, well, I've got plenty of time to think about it later.
That's a scary trap to fall into, I think. I mean, and I'm just as guilty as the next person, so I'm not on a soapbox here saying any of this, but it's really easy to why do today what can be done tomorrow? That's why God gave us tomorrows. It's like, yeah. If you keep thinking you've got a lot of time, and then it doesn't materialize. Here's what's technically an old movie reference now. Anybody remember the movie War Games? There was the scene with Matthew Broderick's character David, talking about how he wanted to learn to swim, and he always thought he had time. There was going to be time, but the progression of the events of the movie were getting to a point where stuff was looking really bad, and it was just kind of one of those that always stuck with me. It's like, oh yeah, there'll be time. If you keep thinking that, eventually there isn't time, and you don't know when that moment's going to be. So, weird tangent aside, that went through my head there. So, it's easy to think that there's going to be time, but there's no way to actually know there's going to be time. Yuko is smiling happily. So I guess at the end of the day, she had to kind of think about her future, but she came away feeling not disheartened about it. And yeah, I do feel like our relationship has grown. We did kind of talk about a little, slightly deeper stuff, more than just basic track team stuff. I'm not just here to carry bags back to the school for her. So that's progress in the Strength Arcana, rank 2 with Yuko, the team manager. I think that was a meaningful outing for us. I feel like it got me contemplative on some stuff, which I kind of like having that mirror shown to me and have to think about that sort of thing sometimes. Whether or not I like what I see and what I have to confront, that remains to be seen, but sometimes you kind of need that push.
I guess this isn't the best place for a long conversation, huh?
Probably true.
I'm gonna go drop these off at the storage room. See ya!
I thought the point of me coming along was to help carry stuff, but
Ouch!
he came out of nowhere. And my character did not react at all as he just stares down at this scene.
Ow!
Hey, it's dangerous to be running around here. Wait, aren't you?
Oh, she seems to know this kid.
Oh, Auntie Yuko.
How many times do I have to tell you? You can call me Big Sis, nothing else.
Not Auntie, Big Sis.
Oh no, they're gonna catch me. See ya, Auntie.
And that went right over his head. He's like, nope, you're Auntie.
Hey, wait! And he's gone. That kid lives across the street from me. Why on earth are they playing tag in a place like this?
That's that view of the world as a kid versus the view of the world as, someone with more responsibilities. It's like, I'm sure as a kid, this is a big, wide open place with lots of obstacles, and, this is the fun place to do it. But for anybody else, it's like, no, this is a mall. This is where people are trying to shop and relax, and, they don't want kids running around.
I mean, it's dangerous, right? You should go play in the schoolyard or something.
I'm thinking dangerous probably isn't, top of most kids', thoughts when they're, playing something to, finding something to do, going somewhere. For the responsible ones, yeah, but, we've all been kids, and we've all learned lessons as kids that, teach you to be more mindful going forward.
Oh no, the school gate is gonna close soon. I'll see you at practice.
I don't mind carrying stuff back, that's why I'm here. Okay, good talk, bye. All right, after saying goodbye to Yuko, I decided to go back to the dorm.
Welcome back.
Sup, dude? Finally, the 3-day weekend starts tomorrow. I asked some people if they wanted to hang out, but the only ones interested were guys. You had best use your time wisely. Need I remind you, midterms are quickly approaching. Feels like the semester, the season, the school year just started, so it's weird to think midterms are right around the corner. And here I was, thinking I could just live in blissful ignorance for a few days. It's actually kind of a good coincidence then that we decided to work on some of our academics. And I feel like that does kind of put that, in an even greater focus if we do have midterms coming up. I'm going to take my bag up to my room here and let's think about, the short term and maybe slightly longer term, forecasts. I don't want to ignore my future after talking about that just a few minutes ago. So we put the bag away. We've got no new messages. And while it's fresh in my head, I just want to pull out our calendar and take a look. Okay. So yeah, here's the 3-day weekend. We've got Constitution Day tomorrow, then Greenery Day, then Children's Day. It's a nice, stretch of time off there. But what I was really concerned about is, these are really close. We have a week of midterms starting on Monday the 18th and running through Saturday the 23rd. So that is one of those that feels like a longer time off than it actually is. I do think, trying to get some more academic progress done before then is going to be, it can't hurt to come into, exams having that bit of preparation done, right? So I feel like we're working in the right direction on that. Let's take a look and see what everybody else did for Saturday evening. A small handful of people went back to Tartarus again. And I could see, that wouldn't be bad. I don't think I'm going to choose that because we don't have a specific reason to be there. It wouldn't be bad to, to make a little bit more money potentially, just to enable some other activities later, but with those exams coming and the need to work on some academics, I think there are slightly more pressing things to consider right now. And it looks like most people kind of thought the same thing. At the same time, it is Friday night, so I don't want to just, it's not even Friday, it's Saturday night. Here I'm thinking, the end of the school week is Friday, but it's Saturday night tonight, so I really don't want to just, head to our room and, study at our desk before bed. Not that there's anything wrong with, catching up on some studying, but I think there are some other academic, pursuits we can do that would be a bit more fun. Okay, and this is reminding us, we do have a shopping program on Sundays, so we'll have to try to remember tomorrow to consider checking that out. We've got everybody to check in on. Realize I haven't saved it in a little while, so let's catch up on that. And let's also see what's on the news today, see what we can learn. Today is Hachiju Hachiya. The Hachiju Hachiya means 88th night. It marks the beginning of the late dew season. It's widely known that this time of year is when the best tea leaves are picked. The weather has been clear with no fog, and the tea's flavor is excellent. There were many tea parties thrown around town in celebration. I'm not much of a tea connoisseur, but it's kind of interesting information to hear. Again, it doesn't change the world of the game as we're living in it, but it broadens it that little bit more. And I'm sure Mitsuru, appreciates good tea. Is something the matter? Just wanted to chat.
That reminds me.
Our school's exams tend to be difficult, but you'll be fine as long as you're diligent about studying. That said, you just transferred, and then you were hospitalized for a time. I'll see what I can do to help you. I do appreciate that, but I also don't want to be held to a different standard than everyone else. Kind of like the entirety of this playthrough, I want my choices to be mine and to live with the consequences of my choices. That was the very first night. That was the contract I signed with the mysterious boy at the desk over there. It's like, I promised to make my own choices and deal with what comes from that. So, I will gladly take any help Mitsuru wants to give, but I still want to, make my way through the world like everyone else is expected to. Akihiko is still working on, keeping his gear nice and maintained. Well, it's just about Golden Week. I was looking forward to improving on past year's Golden Week training regimen, but I guess that won't be happening this year. Gotta feel bad for the guy. It is kind of that same concept from earlier about, planning is good, but over-planning can lead to kind of things outside of your control, changing those plans for you. Junpei's gaming again. At this rate, I'm going to spend Golden Week the same way I always have. Lazing around, hanging out with dudes. Not that I don't love your company, my dude, but it's just sad. Too sad. Even though I'm a changed man this year. I get it. He wants something different this year. And Yukari here. Let's try to have some fun during Golden Week. Especially since we'll be busy studying for midterms right after it. Yeah, I like that balanced approach too. It's like, let's have the fun while we can, because we need to do the work when we need to do the work. We just need to be responsible in our preparation. There's time for both. Even though, I'm just like everybody else there, and if I had the choice to have the fun or do the work, let's start with the fun and see if there's time for work later, right? It's like, no, that's not the proper responsible way to do things, but doesn't mean it doesn't cross the mind sometimes, right? Anyway, we're looking at something academic. And I think earlier we saw the arcade had an academic game going on, so I'm thinking that might be an interesting way to go. I think it's been about a week since we spent any time at the arcade. But we'll make our way there in a gradual approach, kind of like we've been doing. Check in with another apathy syndrome, man. Looks like there's no one else that, has anything more profound than all that to explain to us. mean, there is the fish place up here. There's Wakatsu Kitchen, but we were just there yesterday, so I'm not sure about headed back there again. I mean, I'm sure the food was good, but, doing the same thing too many times in a row just, kind of flies in the face of my real life. And, I love routine, and if I could do the same thing, fairly regularly, that's not necessarily a bad thing in my mind. But from a watching someone play a game standpoint, I do kind of want to try to keep it interesting and varied, and to just kind of see more of the world. I mean, if I keep doing the same things, then we run the risk of missing out on some other things. That was Net Cafe up there. We could consider buying some software and taking it back to the dorm with us. But I still think, there's that part of me that feels like the arcade is just calling. It feels like that fun Saturday night thing to do that, is a mixture of fun and, to some extent, responsibility, since it does focus on academics. I guess before I get too committed to that, let's double check that was the game. I don't think it changes from day to evening, but I don't want to make that plan and get here and find something totally different. Yeah, it's still You're the Answer, the academic quiz game. I mean, and there is the thought, too, that is, 3,000 yen. That's, a quarter of our money right there. That's... I would feel spending that right now. Here's Apathy Syndrome student. Let's keep checking in on Club Escapade as well. This is only our third time being able to go in here, so let's just, stop in and see if anybody has anything new to say. Doesn't look like it at quick glance. I'm sure our fortune is still the same with the fortune teller, but I guess that's more for her to tell me than for me to decide. I want to know my future. Then let us begin. You have pulled fate's trigger. The bullet passes through many, heading directly to its target. What target that may be, however, is unknown to me. You must find out for yourself. Let us hope that you find fortune in your destiny. Yep, so that's the same information we had the other day. Climb up here again. See some happy couples being couples that don't need my involvement. So yeah, still nothing new to see here. But even still, it has that rewarding feel to me of being able to come in here and seeing the results of working on our courage. Just stare at the fountain here for a little minute or two, not be in anybody's way, hopefully. Give it a quick save as well. Yeah, I feel like we've wrapped up a school week and we're coming into a 3-day weekend here, some extra time off from school. It is a lot of money to spend 3,000 yen right now for things that I could probably use more money for. But I want this to be like from the character's perspective. I don't want to just min-max the cheapest way to do this or the most efficient way to do this, because anybody could do that. I'm not intentionally going to make bad choices for content, but I could kind of see if I were in this situation and I had the time, and there was a game that I wanted to play or something at this arcade, that maybe I would want to go there. And maybe this would be how I would want to spend some of the money I've got. Maybe it starts off this weekend on a fun note. It gets us gaming now and then takes us into tomorrow. And, maybe that opens up some more responsible options, quote unquote. I also kind of want to circle back, since I just said that I don't see going to a place like an arcade as a waste of time. Anything anybody does, if you choose to do it, I don't think it's a waste of time if it means something to you. It's so easy for someone to say, oh, you wasted your night at the arcade. There's so much you could have done, but you wasted your time doing, task X, Y, or Z. But if you did this by choice and you wanted to do it, then I prefer to think that you spent your time, not that you wasted your time. Even when if we select something, it doesn't ask us if we want to waste our time here. It asks us if we want to spend our time here. So we're going to keep that idea of spending our time going. Almost feels like I'm trying to sell you guys on why I should be allowed to use 3,000 yen to play at the arcade, but I think I am. This is how we're going to start this long Golden Week break. Having some fun at the game parade. Yes, I should spend the night here. I'm not going to waste the night here. I'm going to spend the night here. We're going to play You're the Answer, a competitive quiz game. I played the quiz game, You're the Answer. I increased my intelligence by competing against other players from all over Japan. It's kind of fun to play trivia games every once in a while, too, just to see what knowledge you have and what what relevant trivia you know, what irrelevant trivia you know. And just to see some nice academic progress there. Kind of that best of both worlds of working on something we want to work on, while having fun, while being in the moment of starting off a long weekend. Just like choosing to spend the time, choosing to spend the money. Yeah, I could have done other things, but I'm going to own up to what I did. I feel like we had a good time doing it, so I'm not going to regret this. We made academic progress, we played a game, we're setting up for a fun weekend. We're living our life. Okay. I was so ready to jump back away from the game. It looks like something's happening during the dark hour tonight.
Hi, how are you?
We know this voice. Still seems a little creepy to wake up and see, a mysterious boy standing at the foot of the bed, but especially with the heh heh. But as we sit up here, we look unfazed by it. There's always been that question of how did you get in that I haven't been asking before, so it kind of almost feels weird at this point to ask him now. I mean, it's been happening. So, and I do recognize him, so I think maybe he would like us to, you again? Depends on how we're delivering it again, too. Is this just a question of, you again? Or is it that exasperated, you again? Depends on how we're taking it. I like to think of it more as a recognition than as a defeated feeling, though.
It's been a while. Are you well?
It has been a while, and I think I'm well. I feel like we're making positive progress in a lot of things.
1 week from now, there'll be a full moon. Be careful. A new hardship is coming.
That's a little cryptic, but I'm sure that'll be important knowledge to keep in my mind. Both good questions again here. He seems like the kind of character that that tells us what we need to know, but only what he thinks we need to know. So there's that thought about asking what kind of hardship. It's like I feel like if he wanted to tell us, he'd have already told us. So I feel like I might get more out of him by just asking about the moon here, because that is kind of a curious point to me. I have noticed the moon phase indicator up there by the day, and that's been up there every day. And, once again, for anybody who is unaware, full disclosure, I have played this game a couple times before, so I personally do have more information than our character does, but I'm not going to spoil any of that for anybody. I'm going to keep myself in the character in the moment, and only rely on information that our character knows at this point, so have no fear in that regard. But also, please try to be responsible for your fellow viewers, and also try to, mitigate spoiling things if you can. I would really appreciate it. So I'm going to ask you, a full moon, huh?
Yes. On that day, you'll face a great challenge.
A great challenge.
You need to be prepared, but your time is limited.
Our time is limited. That has been such a fun mixed, thought throughout this playthrough, because on the one hand, we do only have so many choices we can make, and, there's only so much time in a day, but on the other side of things, playing this, one day at a time as I've been doing, it's kind of wild to think that it's been, going on a month already since this playthrough started. It's been that many days to actually get to this point already. And that's how it's been for our character as well. But even still, for, what's been a whole month, our time is still limited. And we need to be mindful of that, it looks like.
I'm sure you're aware of that, though.
Yep, we were just kind of talking about that, and I do want to keep maintaining that awareness, too. And for the same reason, we stopped at the pharmacy today, just to kind of, make sure we're caught up on everything. You use the time you've got now while you can, so that you're not regretting not using it, later.
I'll come see you again when it's over. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye. And just like that, he's gone, and the way he disappears. Okay. Now it's the transition screen we're waiting for. So let's stop it there so we don't get into tomorrow before tomorrow. I'll take us back to the desk, and let's talk about what we did today. Okay, so here we are again. That was Saturday, May 2nd. Still kind of wild to think that it's Saturday today already. It's been a quick week. And in-game, it feels like we actually got a lot done again today. It was kind of starting out feeling like we were going to be through another quick one, but it felt like a nice full day. we started the day in school as we've been doing, as I keep saying we've been doing. We're still high school students. And the school day portion of itself was quick, even though we were trying to be aware that it was still a full school day. And then afterwards, we kind of got, to do our normal talking to people around that had some new things to say. Made our way over to the Polonia Mall and checked out the pharmacy sale. Picked up a couple, items that were on sale just to be prepared for whatever comes our way. Checked in with all of our regulars, said hi to Igor and Elizabeth. We talked to Officer Kurosawa again. We made our way over to, check on the weak cat and see that he's still doing good. I subjected you guys to listening to me voice some, apathy syndrome victims around town. And I made it over to the shrine then to kind of think about, where we wanted to actually go for the day, so it wasn't just wandering around looking for something to do. And decided to head back to school because Yuko had texted us about, seeing if we wanted to hang out. So we made our way back to school, kind of talked to some more people there. Forgot to mention, we've been talking to Chihiro, the treasurer, after school every day, and feels like we're, gradually making a bit more of a connection with her. She still feels nervous around people, but today she felt like she was making actual progress, saying hello to us, and, I liked that idea of that little win was huge to her. And so, we offered her, like, hey, do you want to try to hang out more and, work on this a little bit more? And, that seemed like a little overwhelming to her at this point. That was, she was happy with the small win and didn't want to think about bigger, challenges at this point. But we've reached out that option to her now, so I'll try to keep interacting with her as much as we can here and there. But we made our way over to Yuko and just said, hey, I've got some free time. I'd love to spend time together. What are you up to doing? And she said she had some shopping to do for the track team. She's the track team manager, so she's being responsible and keeping on top of all that. So I tagged along to carry some bags and do what I do, and get to enjoy spending some time with her as well. So we made our way over to the pharmacy, and after that we kind of talked. She said she had something on her mind. She seemed kind of bummed out about something, and I was able to kind of get some information out of her. She had a pop quiz today that she ended up falling asleep during and turning in a blank paper, and then she got reprimanded by the teacher in the faculty office and has to write a report about responsibility, and so she was feeling annoyed about that and probably self-conscious and kind of bad about it happening in the first place. And then that kind of evolved into a talk about, the future. The teacher there was talking about how she has no concept of the future and being prepared for things. And so that kind of got us talking about, I asked her, so, have you thought about the future? And, she said, no, not really. I plan to graduate high school and, I'm focused on the track team. And, the future's a ways off, so I haven't really needed to care about that. And it was just kind of fun to look at that mindset and acknowledge both sides of it and kind of talk through. I can see her side, but acknowledging too that I do like to have a plan, and with the caution of too much planning can also be just as restrictive, and especially if something changes that's outside of your control. But it was kind of fun to just have that existential, if you want to call it, talk about what the future means, and to relate that to the concept of how that felt back in high school. Throughout every phase of life, the future feels totally different. As a kid, it's like, oh, the future's forever out there. I don't need to think about that. And as a high schooler, it's like, I know what I'm doing. I need to work on high school, and I've got my club activities. The future can happen after that. And then as you get further in life, it's like I'm almost in the future now, but there's still that there's stuff I need to do, but there's other stuff that's more important right now. So it's always one of those things to just stay mindful of, at any age, and it looks differently at every age too. So we talked about that for a while, and she seemed to be feeling a bit more relieved. We made a bit more of that connection too. She was able to share that concern with me and trust me to talk out with her. And so we got a little bit closer there, and we ranked up the strength social link, to rank 2 now. Nice to make a little more connection with Yuko and see her as more of a person and not just see her as the manager for the team. I mean, she still is really focused on the team, but she's more than that too. She's a person with her own worries and concerns and views on what the future means to her right now. After our talk, there was a kid that bumped into her, and she recognized him as someone that lived nearby, and he called her Auntie Yuko, and she quickly corrected him. It's like, you can call me Big Sis, but you can't call me Auntie. And he and his buddies are still playing tag, and he runs off saying, okay, bye, Auntie. It's like that kid personality, like, oh yeah, you're Auntie, of course you are. You're not anything else to me. Big Sis, no, you're Auntie. And so she just kind of had that exasperated, kids basically. And that kind of circles back to that, that different view of the world from different stages in life. She's talking about being a high schooler and thinking she's got it all figured out for what she needs to right now. And kind of looking back on kids being kids and wondering why they act the way they do. It's just kind of that fun commentary, because I'm sure the teacher that took her to the faculty office to talk about sleeping during a test was thinking the same thing. It's like, high schoolers, where do they get off sleeping during my class when they need to be thinking about their future and respecting people? It's that fun little side-by-side commentary that was, obviously not subtle, but, nice to put into context there and actually talk out. But with that, she headed back to the school to take, the things we'd purchased. I'd kind of thought I was going to tag along and help her carry things, because that was one of the reasons I came with her, but she was happy to run off without me, so that brought us back to the dorm for the evening. And there was that talk about the excitement of the start of the Golden Week break. We've got the next 3 days off, with the reality side of things that midterms are coming up pretty soon too, so we need to use our time wisely. Yeah, it's a time for a break and to have fun, but there's a responsible way to do that and to be mindful, again, of, what the future calls for. We're not going to dictate every single, hour of our day, but there are the big things that are coming up that we do need to, be ready for now. Those exams will come whether we want them to or not, so it's up to us to use our limited time to get ready. And so after checking in with everybody at the dorm, we've been working on academics. Having ranked up courage the other day, I wanted to keep going with academics. And I feel even better about that choice with all this talk of exams now, because this feels like we are actually taking steps to prepare for something that is inevitably coming. And so I wanted to do something academic that also fit for our character. There were a lot of things we could have done. We could have just gone back to our room and studied at our desk. I could have gone back to Wakatsu Kitchen like we did last night. I could have bought some software at the net cafe and played on the shared computer. But I also kind of wanted to keep this as something fun for our character that would start off a good long weekend. And we've been to the arcade before. Our character is a self-professed gamer. I like that idea too. So it had been about a week since we'd made it over to the arcade. And it really seemed, like good fortune that the game at the arcade today was a quiz game that, helped us raise academics. So I decided to head in that general direction and kind of talk it out for a while. It wasn't cheap to go there. It was about a quarter of our remaining funds right now. So, kind of ouch in that regard. But it seemed like the fun sort of thing our character would do. It's like if he had the time and it was something he liked doing, it was the start of a long weekend. Yeah, it sounds like the fun way to spend Saturday night. I didn't want him to just go up to his room by himself and do equations on paper. Nothing wrong with that, but I just kind of feel like the character wants to have a little bit of fun in his life and to break things up. So we spent the evening at the arcade playing that quiz game. Sounded like there were some fun competitive questions where we were competing against other people in Japan. So it was that fun gaming perspective while also multitasking and improving our academics as a result. Kind of that best of both worlds. So yeah, it was a lot of money, but I was glad to spend it because it fits the narrative I wanted to go for, and it works towards the goals we wanted to work on. So I think we had a good time at the arcade in the evening. We made it back to the dorm and got to bed nice and early since we weren't going to Tartarus. And I was all ready to call it quits there like we had the last few days, but come the dark hour, we had that same mysterious boy from earlier in the playthrough show up in our room again. And he was being just as mysterious as ever. His nice soft-spoken way of telling us, hey, there's a full moon coming next week. You're going to face a big challenge on that day, so you better be ready for it. And he didn't elaborate on what the challenging hardship was going to be, other than just to tell us, like, hey, it's out there, it's coming. You better be ready. And, having no real information on that, I say about the full moon. It's like, the full moon? It's like, yep, that's when it happens. Basically matter-of-factly, like, yep, that's all you need to know right now. And so, we're still really in the dark on, what sort of hardship, is looming on the horizon there. All we really know is that it ties into the full moon. So that will be something to be mindful of as we go forward here. Kind of puts that different spin on getting ready for exams the following week. And he also cautioned us, just like we've been thinking, use your limited time wisely to get ready for this hardship. And, that's hard not knowing what the hardship is going to be, but we'll try to just be as versatilely prepared for whatever comes our way as we can. And it was nice that, with whatever information he had, he decided to share it with us. I don't necessarily feel overly well informed, but I know a lot more than I did if he didn't tell us anything, so I do appreciate that. And with that, in his, his cryptic way, he just kind of smiled and said, he would see us again once it was all over, and he faded away. So after that, I guess, we we went back to sleep, and that was how Saturday ended. So we're moving into Sunday, starting off our 3-day weekend. That's going to hopefully be some fun for us. But that won't be happening until tomorrow, so let's wrap up this side of things here. I want to thank you all for being here today. My name is Tom Shima. I stream this Persona A Day series every day at 12:30 Eastern Time. I also upload each day's playthrough to YouTube, so if you ever want to catch up on today's stream or a past stream, you can do that there. I hope your Saturday is a fantastic day, that you can do all the fun things you want to do and feel productive about it. Maybe give some thought to the future. Maybe not. Whatever makes you happy. But I hope I can see you again tomorrow, and we can keep having some fun. Take care, and have a great day. With that, we've reached the end of the day. Please look forward to next time to see where the game goes from here. This journey is being streamed live on my Twitch channel if you'd like to be there in person for the experience. Links and schedule details can be found in the description. I'll keep uploading each day's session to this channel so you can keep watching here. Once again, I'm Tom Shima. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you again as I continue the series, Persona A Day. What will tomorrow bring?